I'm Tim, welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. I'm your host, this is Watches Tonight. Guys, this evening we support a cause, we discuss all things Patek Philippe 2022, we chat live, and I share your viewer wrist shots right here on Watches Tonight. Sean is on the switcher, he's the man who makes the magic happen, and you need to check out the redesigned homepage of thewatchbox.com. Over 3,000 pre-owned and vintage watches available right now, every brand, every style, every price point, and of course every function. If like me, you like complications, you will meet your match. Two-hand Panerai, likewise. Thewatchbox.com. Open another window, keep me streaming. All right, on a more serious note, I would like to ask anyone who is currently in the market for a new watch, a different watch, a change of pace, any watch, to, again, do me a personal favor and consider buying that watch through the Watch Fam for Ukraine Solidarity Auction. This has been organized by Waco of Revolution Magazine, Kathleen McGivney of Red Bar Group, and it's going to be hosted by Eric Koo on his website, Loop This. It's going to be from March 25th through midnight, March 28th, all times U.S. Eastern. Now, 100% of the proceeds will go to charity World Central Kitchen, a very highly rated NGO. It's basically a traveling food pantry that specializes in refugee relief. Go over to Charity Navigator, check them out. They are 5 stars. They are the real deal. And nothing is going to any government, and it's not going into the war zone. All of these food kitchens are in neighboring countries within refugee camps. So in addition to many superb models, such as a two-tone Submariner being donated by the Watchbox, that's us, you will have a chance to own a watch that never ever was supposed to come up for sale, and in fact it won't be sold, but it will be auctioned. My Zin EZM 1.1, serial number 0487, will be offered in the auction with full box papers plus a handwritten note from yours truly that confirms it is in fact the watch I wore while interviewing Recep Recep'i, Max Busser, Philippe Dufour, and countless others. It's also the watch that I have worn on watch adventures around the world in Singapore, Dubai, and Geneva. This is the only watch I've worn since 2018, and again, it is a watch I would never sell. But there are greater causes and more important things than my sorry sentiment. So, I have to say that this is a watch that's been a companion on the air during the holidays. And there's even a showcase of it on YouTube right now. If you want to learn more about this exact serial number, this exact watch that will be offered, this is the full showcase. In-depth, front and back, all functions, background, and context. So check out my Zin EZM 1.1 starting on the 25th of this week, March 25th through the 28th, over on Eric Koo's Loop This. And help Ukrainians who desperately need reason to be hopeful. And I have to say, while I will be sad to see it go, this is the best possible ending for my time with this Zin, and I will always remember it well, and I hope it means as much to you as it did to me. All right, viewer wrist shots number 1. Starting out with Derek D, who goes out for a serious drive with his McLaren 675T. That is, I should say LT, long tail, the high performance version with his Tudor Black Bay chronograph, looking good with the red and the panda dial. We have Rick R from the American Midwest with his Zenith Dayfi Classic Skeleton Time and Tide Night Surfer edition with Karma the dog. We've got Dr. Paul S, who's in the Swiss Alps with his very limited MB&F Mad 1 watch, mailed straight from Max. Miguel S. of Puerto Rico visits Philadelphia with his AP Royal Oak 15400 ST, and MC Stuns with double German hardware, BMW and the Alango Unzona Saxonia Perpetual Calendar in yellow gold, the boldest and oldest of golds. Finally, we've got Xavier F. and his Omega Speedmaster Moonwatch 50th anniversary right off of Venice, Italy. Looking good, my men, absolutely sharp. The best wrist shot, I think, in this batch, at least from a pure photography perspective. All right, so send your watch shots Whether they are wrist shots, car shots, dog shots, watches and whiskers, cat shots, I don't care. Monday mailbag at thewatchbox.com to see your pieces on my pixels. All right, let's see who's in the box tonight. We've got Edward Ledden of Sweden, Hale Bopp, Enrique Casiano, Richard Combs of South Florida. Richard, you're in the show tonight. Dave Opencar, Joe Pinto from Los Angeles this time instead of Louisville, Kentucky. John N., Mr. Nodate, Wolfgang of Austria, Butik 1 from Poland, Arto Charles from Manhattan, New York, Dendrobates, Scott Wexlin, a local boy from Pennsylvania, and Joe Tyson from Apex, North Carolina, Ethan Davis, and Sinkin H joining in from Belgium. All right, so let's talk about 2022 Patek Philippe watches. My predictions, I do this every year. I do it for Patek, I do it for Rolex, sometimes I do it for Omega, but Omega's already released. So we're starting with Patek. Watches and Wonders kicks off on March 30th. Let's see if I can preempt and guess what's coming. But first, let's talk about discontinuations, what will not make it into the next model year. Okay. Watches and Wonders 2022 is on the horizon, and this is going to be the first time Patek is launching its entire new model collection in its home city of Geneva instead of online or off at Basel on the other side of Switzerland. Last year was all about the discontinuation of the Nautilus 5711, and in fact that model is gone for this year. It's gone in steel, it's gone with gem setting, it's gone in rose gold. Finito. That said, it's important to remember that there were a bunch of new models for last year that only existed last year, and now they're gone. Of course, you knew the 5711 1R, that wasn't new for the year, but the 5711 1A14 was. 1 year only, a very voguish green metallic dial, and of course, this is probably going to be the real collector's piece in the future, even though it's not to every taste. The 5711 1300A, this was the gem set steel green dial Nautilus. They're all history. So complications are also seeing a culling, as the yellow gold cloisonné world timer, the 5231J, that's gone. Now what normally happens with these watches is that you will see discontinuations, and as long as metals remain untapped, in general you'll see a retirement of the yellow and something like rose or white or platinum will be called in. And that's what I expect to happen here. We had one of each for the previous version of the watch. We had the 5131 in rose, yellow, and white gold, plus a model in platinum, all very special. I should also explain that the extended world timer collection sees a culling, as the 5230R in rose gold is also gone, and so is the 5230G in white gold. Both attractive pieces, but get them before they're gone. If you find one in a dealer, I'd love to know where that dealer is located. If you have your order in, it'll probably be honored, because I do know that some orders were taken. I hear things. Some orders were taken this year, but not for the next model year. It's technically the old model year until Watches and Wonders opens. So I do think we will see new models in different golds. Just, again, if you don't like those other golds, get the rose and the white, well, you can still put in an order. Now, Patek discontinues the rarely seen 5372P. This came out in 2017, and while I see just about everything here at Watchbox, I don't think I've yet had one of these mono-pusher, split-second, platinum perpetual calendar complications. I simply haven't seen one. I don't think I've ever encountered one anywhere, including at the Patek Philippe Grand Exhibition back in New York in 2017. So if you got one of these in platinum, whether it's going to be the salmon or the blue dial, you've got a real rarity, and a watch that probably, like the 5020, is going to be quite a collectible down the road. But in the short term, they are gone. Get your order in before the order books close. Rose gold, white gold, or even yellow gold is likely to succeed what we've seen. And with Only Watch coming again next year, I wouldn't be shocked if we saw a titanium version of this watch for Only Watch. I have no prior knowledge, I'm just guessing. It would look pretty cool and be pretty cool. We got Watchusius joining from Dubai. We've got Alp joining in from Istanbul. Good to see you, my man. Burning Mr. B from the Netherlands. We got Adam Crossfire, Nate Meyer, John N., Bob Golub joining from Paris. We got Paul Steinberg joining in and burning Mr. B with MJ Carroll, Danny C., and Michael M. from San Diego on America's left coast. Okay, guys, we got Eric Ridout asking a Lange und Söhne versus Lang und Heine. Lang und Heine. Unless there's a Lange watch for which L&H has no equivalent. But Lang und Heine is truly speaking, it's like the German Romain Gaultier or maybe Ferdinand Berthoud. It's so beautifully over-finished that it's almost singular. There are few comparisons you can make, and they have both finish and architecture. Both things combined to make for a special watch. Okay. More discontinuations, including the much-loved 5270P. This watch came out in 2018, and everyone sort of said this is what the 5270 should have been from the beginning. No confusion over tack or no tack, chin or no chin. This is the watch. Platinum case, salmon dial, black and white gold numerals, indices, and hands. This is a really cool piece, and it is easily the most attractive version of the long controversial 5270. I should also say we've seen this watch now in platinum, yellow gold, and white gold, and rose gold. We've seen all of them, which means we could just about be in for a replacement reference. Now, of course, this is a long chain of very important flagship watches dating back to the 1940s. We don't know whether Patek will replace this reference as soon as it's discontinued, and I strongly suspect that if the platinum model's being discontinued, they're either going to go for a run in steel to finish up the series, or they're going to end the 5270P entirely. But like the Nautilus, like the Calatravas, there can't not be one in the catalog. We still have, for example, the Nautilus moon phase available, and there are many Calatravas in this, the 90th anniversary of the Calatravas. Remember, the first regular production Patek Philippe perpetual calendar chronograph was the 1518 back in 1941. That is a long chain, again unbroken, through the 2499s, the 3970s, the 5970s, very important watches. And Patek cannot afford to have one of these missing from the catalog. So I suspect we're either going to see one in steel or we're going to see a new perpetual calendar chronograph this year, an all-new reference, possibly in a slightly smaller case. Okay. Let's see what you guys are saying in the box. We got Miroslav joining in, XX1J, Mark S. We've got Terry C. asking Lang und Heine versus Moritz Grossmann. I would say there is no automatic more beautiful than the Hamatic vintage. So definitely look for that. I think Lang und Heine makes maybe more elaborately finished movements, but God is in the details with Moritz Grossmann. Little things like the way they brown rather than blue their screws, they use clear sapphires, they use incredibly broad stripes, and they hand engrave every movement. They do have a different style than Lang und Heine. So their best watches like the Hamatic, the Tourbillon, the back page, the Cornerstone, I really do think those are finished just as nicely as Lang und Heine, but it's the difference between something rather austere, like a 1980s Mercedes-Benz S-Class compared to a Rolls-Royce. Is the Rolls better? No, it's just more flamboyant and outwardly opulent. And that really is the operative comparison right there between Moritz Grossmann and Lang und Heine. All right, we are also bidding farewell to the 5320G perpetual calendar, the ivory dial perpetual with syringe hands that came out in 2017 and has long been one of my favorite watches in the catalog, both for the details of its dial and the beauty of its fluted lug case. Now this is a watch, this watch, that I consider one of the best of the Thierry Stern design era. It draws heavily from the 1940s two-unit 1591 reference. Two of those were made, and that really is the direct draw from which the 5320 was created. Now, I would be shocked if we don't just see a rose gold version or a yellow gold version of this watch, because it really was a sea change in the design of Patek Philippe perpetual calendars, and I think the design still has a lot of potential in it. Like the 5235, I expect a seamless transition to a different color dial and a different color case, but I don't think it's going to go away. I would also say that although steel is possible, remember, they did the weekly calendar back in 2019, the 5212A. Don't discount the possibility that literally any watch being discontinued this year could come back in a steel form. That said, the Nautilus won't be back as a steel watch, not this year, but I would say just about any discontinued complication or dress watch could very well come back as a steel timepiece. Historically, Patek has made about 20% of its production in stainless steel, of which most was admittedly the ladies 24. But the loss of the 5711 from the catalog will allow Thierry Stern to apportion more volume to other steel model lines if he wants to do so. And recently, we have seen more steel dress watches from Patek in the form of that 5212A you just saw, the limited edition 2020 reference 6007A, which was a lovely 40mm in steel with a slate blue dial. That was a cool piece, but I don't think it's going to be the last. We also saw last year's 4947 1A, which was a gorgeous linen dial, stainless steel, full bracelet annual calendar. I think Patek Philippe is on a roll, which is why I would say there's a good chance that something like the 5330 or 5320, where are my manners tonight? Sorry, Patek. I would not be shocked if something like the 5320 comes back as a steel watch, even if for just 1 year. So, now both bracelet and strap-clad versions of the rose gold split seconds perpetual calendar chronograph, the 5204, are finished. Now, we've seen this watch in rose gold, bracelet and no bracelet, and we've seen it in platinum, so there's still plenty of room to expand this model line into other materials before we even need to start thinking about a successor reference. Remember, a return to the 5004A is by no means guaranteed, though when this model was ready for discontinuation for the last few model years, it was made in steel in dozens of copies, which for a watch that was probably only made in 200 plus copies to begin with, was actually a fair percentage of total 5004 production. So a steel 5204 isn't impossible, and it may even be inevitable, not this year, but once Patek decides to sunset the 5204 in favor of a follow-on reference. Let's see what is going on right here. Luis Cook saying, Viva Omega. Bob Golub saying, a new Patek Philippe Calatrava sector dial would be awesome. We've got Shorya S., greetings from India. Junior Johnson, greetings from Michigan. And Jerry Adams saying, Colorado loves Tim. Jerry, I think you have mail. I actually think I just sent you an email about my Zin. Jerry had a question about buying my Zin, and at the time I'm like, yeah, forget it. But actually now you have a chance. You can't buy it, but you can win it. All right, so let's see how many viewers do we have. 252, guys. Let's try to get that up to 300. Sean's good for it. We got a lot of program tonight. We got Talai S. asking, Tim, what is your favorite integrated bracelet sports watch? Right now, there's a couple of good ones. I really like the Moser Streamliner center second with the matrix green dial and the thinner case. The perpetual calendar and the flyback chrono are a little too big, but I really like the center second. I also like the Chapek Antarctique, which I think is beautiful and full of unique features that make it highly appealing, even compared to the best of the haute horlogerie alternatives. And I really do think that the Chopard Alpine Eagle has a lot to offer, especially in its very cool high beat version, though I do think that the steel model is the best value. And if you want the best value in integrated bracelet sports watches right now, the blue dial, Cartier Santos de Cartier, large. That's the one that came out the year after the redesign. Blue dial, gradient fade, loomed, anti-magnetic, 100 meters water resistant, price just over $7,000. Manufacturer movement, a quick switch bracelet system that lets you swap in the strap that comes standard with the watch so you can swap between them without tools, and the Smart Link bracelet that allows you to use your thumbnail to literally pop out removable links and size the bracelet without tools. I think that might be the best integrated bracelet sports watch you can buy at any price at this point. All right, back to our regularly scheduled program with some viewer wrist shots number 2. Curtis A. combines Swiss and British steel with his Rolex no-date sub, an Austin Healey 100. That is a 1955 Austin Healey, and I love it. It's also his birth year. We got Jeffrey M. of Chile commuting with his Suzuki Espresso and his rather rare early Moser, pre-MELB Moser Monard. Looking cool, looking good. Richard C. of South Florida, he's in the box now, he's on your screen. Through the Vacheron Constantin Les Collectionneurs collection, where you can buy restored vintage Vacheron from Vacheron. This is his 1942 triple calendar in LA. So that is the watch on which the Historique was based. We have Dr. Horology and his friend Reference 416 combining Gen 1 39mm longa datagraphs in Toronto. Looking good, guys. I love it. It's a beautiful complementary match of dials and of cases. Immaculate and impeccable taste for both. We have Ziv G of Cape Town framing his Omega Speedmaster 40 racing against Lion's Head Mountain just outside of Cape Town, South Africa. Guys, send your wrist shots to mondaymailbag@thewatchbox.com. See what else is going on here. Thomas Von W saying, I have no idea what IWC are marketing on social media at the moment. A box sending out lightning beams? Maybe it's a new ingénieur? Maybe it's some sort of a foudroyant with a lightning bolt seconds hand? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. We'll find out together. We'll find out. It'll be fun. And because this is now a fusion of like Baselworld and SIHH all together at Watches and Wonders Geneva this year, we're probably going to see that new IWC along with all the new Richemont brand stuff at roughly the same time we're seeing the new Tudors, the new Rolex, and the new Patek. It's going to be one hell of a busy week here at Watchbox, especially in this studio where we will be covering it. Right here, Mark S. Tim, does your website still publish watch editorials and podcasts? We do still publish the podcasts. You can find those on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and iTunes. For some reason, we're not good at updating the timmosso.com website, but there have regularly been new podcasts. You can find them on the platforms, just sometimes not on the website. Recently, most of my publications have been on Quill and Pad, so I'm still writing. I need to get back to writing for timmosso.com, but you can see a lot of my photo studies and full model review write-ups over at Quill and Pad, including recent updates. We got Alex25, a fan of the show, joining us from Vienna, Austria. I love it. We got at least 2 in Austria watching tonight. Okay, almost 300 concurrent viewers. Guys, let's get that up over 300. Stick with me, stay with me. Okay, now let's jump back to Patek Philippe predictions. Talking about the Aquanaut, this might be the big news this year. We tend to love round numbers for watch brand and watch model anniversaries, but 25 is a symbolic milestone. It's a big deal. After all, a quarter century is huge amidst the constant flux of watch models, watch model lines, and even the comings and goings of entire watch brands in the luxury segment. Not every model line or brand makes it to 25 years. That's why we need to keep the Aquanaut in mind as it turns 25 this year. The quarter century, it's a big deal. First, there's the obvious anniversary year potential for fanfare and new models. After all, the current 5167A has been around since 2007 and does seem that it's due for a redesign. Everyone expected a successor model back in 2017, which was the 20th anniversary since the original limited edition steel Aquanaut 5060. The Aquanaut family tree at that point was pretty expansive, but the additions for that model year weren't new core references. Rather, we got the complementary addition, not substitution, of the 42.2mm white gold reference 5168G, which officially was the anniversary model, while keeping the Aquanaut, the 40.8mm 5167A on the books. Patek also ordered the frankly polarizing limited edition Aquanaut Travel Time Advanced Research 5650G, which was cool in concept but not altogether attractive to look at. And while the unique use of elastic elements to substitute for a large number of parts and reduce complexity was technically interesting, it did leave collectors very divided about the way it was portrayed with an open dial. Some people dug it, some people said leave that to Hublot. But it was, to say the least, a surprise. Now, the 10th anniversary of the Aquanaut in 2007 brought the current 5167A. So they treated that anniversary with the respect it was due, and they gave us an all-new, full-sized 40.8mm steel Aquanaut. The 30th anniversary of the Nautilus was an extravaganza. In 2006, we got the new 5711, which was the successor to the 3700, the original jumbo. We got the 5712, which was a successor to the one-year 3712 moon phase of the prior model year. We got the 5980, the first ever Nautilus chronograph. That was a heck of a lot for an anniversary year. It was a big deal. And I would even go so far as to say Patek went out all out again for the 40th anniversary of the Nautilus in 2016 with 2 limited edition anniversary references with an electric blue dial that also featured a 1976 to 2016 40th anniversary commemoration, diamond indices, and again, both of these in platinum and white gold were limited editions and very special, exclusive to that model year. It was a sense of occasion befitting Patek Philippe's best known and most important watch. So where is our Aquanaut 6167 for 2022? Well, it might only be a few days away, and we're going to find out. With less of Patek's annual allocation of steel devoted to the 5711, there may be more room to expand production of the Aquanaut. And while the 6711 Nautilus or equivalent is all but inevitable, the Aquanaut might be the only Patek steel sports watch line for a few model years before the inevitable 5711 replacement arrives. That means it needs to be a flagship. It can't continue to be the junior model line or the thing you buy because you either can't find a Nautilus or can't afford one. So the 5167-1A, which is the model on the bracelet, has proved that the next Aquanaut needs a better bracelet. I've encountered a lot of these, and there is none of the subtlety or refinement that you get in a Nautilus bracelet. It feels clunky. It looks like something you would expect on, frankly, a Longines. The quality is not befitting a Patek Philippe, and frankly, it's not up to the quality of the basic Aquanaut itself. So this needs to change. When the watch was born with a strap in 1997, it was, well, frankly, a very entry-level way to get into Patek, not just as the entry-level sports watch, but it was seen as an entry-level even below the Calatravas. It was the first Patek Philippe you buy. It's not that anymore. So a better bracelet is mandatory, and I would say that realistically the clasp in the current bracelet is better than the clasp in the 5711. So they need to replace the links, but keep the current double deployant twin trigger actuated clasp. I would also say it's important that the Aquanaut's signature geosphere dial stay with the model. This needs to remain. It's been there since 1997, and it's nicely scalable in size as well as across different models with different complications. I can easily imagine Patek, because this isn't the Nautilus, it's the Aquanaut, they can be a bit more liberal and experimental with it. I can imagine colorful gradient dials in blue, green, violet, orange, red. It's hard to envision that with the Nautilus, last year's Tiffany dial notwithstanding, but I could see a rainbow panoply of colors on the Aquanaut. I would also say it needs a better movement. The current 324 SC is handsome but outdated. Even the 5711 gained a new 26330 SC movement in 2019, and it's time for the Aquanaut, or the replacement for the Aquanaut, to get the same. Now, not much changed here. There are a few architecture updates, but the big change was hacking seconds, something long overdue in a world where even the most basic ETA has that function. So, Patek, please put that movement in the next Aquanaut. Also, almost every other major luxury sports watch now offers some sort of tool-free quick release for the strap and bracelets. This is almost universal. You can even find a quick release system on a $3,300 Oris Aquis date, and it's brilliantly put together. So, in a world where you can find this on watches that cost as much as a few links of an Aquanaut bracelet, Patek, it's got to happen on the next generation Aquanaut and down the line on the next generation 5711 replacement. For good measure, please, Patek, be better than the others in the segment. create a quick release mechanism that doesn't require us to use proprietary bracelets and proprietary straps. From Cartier to Hublot to Vacheron, and yes, Oris, too many sports watches with quick release lugs force you to go back to the factory and buy something that is useful only on that watch, which limits your aftermarket options, and it limits the ability of custom artisanal strap makers to give you extra options. And frankly, Patek, you use pull tab spring bars for quick release on your straps for dress watches. So right now, if you buy a Calatrava, if you buy a 5208, if you buy a 5207 complication, you're going to get the same quick release system that you find on an FP Journe strap. You pull the tab, the strap pops off, and the watch uses a normally sized replacement strap. So I think something like that, a non-proprietary quick release, would be great on the next generation Aquanaut, not just for the inevitable rubber strap that you're gonna find on any Aquanaut, but for the bracelet as well. It would open up a world of aftermarket options and show real goodwill, not just toward your customers, but towards the greater watch community. All right, let's see what's going on in the box. We got Justin D. Hey Tim, nice jacket. What do you think is the most interestingly designed modern Patek Philippe? The 5235R. I always thought that the regulator was the most interesting design. From the vintage clasp, it has a vintage Patek logo on the clasp. It has a satin finished stainless steel like dial where the logo is actually engraved into the dial rather than printed. It has a useful annual calendar and a cool regulator, and the movement is exclusive to the model, meaning it is a unique movement and a unique architecture. So for me, that is the most interesting current Patek Philippe watch design. Okay, viewer wrist shots number 3. Albert C. shares his Tudor Black Bay bronze and his 1953 Morris Minor convertible. We've got one of our viewers actually in the box, and now he's on your screen. Talai S. and his Grand Seiko SBGH 273 with a nicely shot classical wrist pose. We've got Simon C. and his Rolex Explorer joined in the garage by his Tesla Model Y Performance. Christopher H. prepares for orthopedic surgery with his Breitling Cosmonaut. Get well soon, Christopher. We've got Nathan K. celebrating St. Paddy's Day with his green dial Frederic Constant Manufacturer World Timer. Guys, send your wrist shots to mondaymailbag@thewatchbox.com. Okay, Wolfgang saying, I think he meant caliber. I'm not sure what stupid thing I said in place of caliber, but yeah, let's go with that. I meant caliber. What else is going on here? Mark K. Tim, Patek Philippe 5524G Pilot's Watch versus 5212A Weekly Calendar. Which is the better casual strap watch from Patek? Well, I think the travel time is a much more useful watch because, one, it's got a second time zone, which is great for travel, also keeping track of far-flung business and friends. And also, it's a very well-loomed watch, but it's a big watch. It's rated at 42, and it wears every millimeter of that. A large, heavy sports watch, it's going to wear like a large, heavy sports watch. It almost wears a little bit more like a 44 or a 43, so keep that in mind. The 5212 is a cool piece, and it's going to be more durable in stainless steel, so for everyday use, it's going to get less disfigured than the white gold, but it's not loomed and it's not as practical as a travel timer. It is very cool though, and it is far more exclusive than just about any version of the Patek Philippe Calatrava pilots, except maybe the Grand Exhibition models launched for the New York and Singapore Grand Exhibition. So again, the 5212A is very scarce, and it's much more wearable at 40 millimeters in stainless steel. Okay, Patek Philippe predictions, Calatrava and dress watches. Okay, I realize that marking 25 years of the Aquanaut might amount to burying the lead for what is otherwise the year we should mark 90 years of Stern family ownership of Patek Philippe, 90 years since the first Stern designed Patek Philippe watch, and 90 years since the first watch that would come to be known by collectors as a Calatrava. So in 1932, the first ever Patek Philippe with a reference number was the Stern-designed Reference 96. Now, it continued in production from 1932 through 1973, so this roughly 31 millimeter watch had a really, really long run, long enough to become iconic and an institution at the Geneva manufacture. So, at the time, in 1932, Stern was a dial maker, and Patek Philippe had been one of its largest clients. So the Stern family was looking after its business interests when it bought the company, and actually one of the administrators of Patek Philippe, which was Lecoultre, wanted to buy it out of bankruptcy but got outbid by the Sterns. Lecoultre had been a movement supplier to Patek Philippe. So interesting piece of history. It very well could have become a division or a subsidiary of Lecoultre back during the 1930s. So this is important because Patek really does interpret its own history of the Calatrava. This is how they interpret it. They do believe that the 96, which wasn't called Calatrava till decades later, is truthfully the beginning of the Calatrava line. This is from Patek Philippe's own website. Hey, doesn't John Stern look a lot like a younger Bruce Campbell? I digress. The point is, this is the beginning of the Calatrava model line, and that's kind of a huge deal at Patek Philippe. According to the runout list of imminently dead references from Patek this year, the Calatrava 5196 in all forms will be gone by the end of this month. Launched in 2004, the 5196 is considered to be the direct descendant of the reference 96 and the keeper of the flame for the traditional manual wind, form follows function, integrated lug, no guard, no hobnail, 3-hand, small seconds Patek Philippe dress watch. Especially compared to the gold model, you can really see the family resemblance between that original reference 96 and the 5196. So the current Calatrava 5196 has several notable limitations, all of which I expect to see addressed in the follow-on model. First, there's the solid caseback, which is out of step with modern tastes. Even when a movement is modest, people who pay luxury money for a watch today want to see the engine. Second, that solid caseback is actually there to obscure an ancient and rather undersized manual wind caliber 215 movement. Yes, it's decently finished, it's got a silicone hairspring, and it's fairly accurate, but it is way too small even for this 37mm dress watch. And I'm going to say that last year's Calatrava 6119 gives us some view of what a new 96 successor might look like. Now, there have always been several different versions of the Calatrava, dating back to the 1970s when we first got the hobnail on the Calatrava, and the 1980s when we first got what is sort of the prototype of this style in the 3919 in 1985. There's always been that hobnail style Calatrava, but the 96 dispenses with that design quirk. I would imagine that we're not going to see something that looks like this so much as adopts the larger case size and the movement. So first of all, we're going to see a watch that's larger than the 5196's 37mm. Second, it's almost inevitable that we will see a display caseback of some kind, and that is the 6119 right there, and a version of the 6119's caliber 3255, which is bigger, better fills a caseback, and it replaces the 215's barely adequate 44-hour power reserve with a more modern 65 hours, and I really do think that is what you should get, no less, on a modern Patek Philippe dress watch. You can also see that the bridge design here with the two barrels and then the individual bridges for the train leading down to the escapement, it's much more elegant. I particularly love the floating bridge in the center, and I do think this is going to be the movement we find in the 5196 successor. So historically, the manual wind 96 line has included a few core elements: integrated lugs, 3 hands, small seconds, leaf, hour, and minute hands, no hobnails on the bezel, no date, no crown guards, and either Arabic numerals or stick indices. To be clear, the Calatrava 5227 isn't part of this series, and it never has been, but it might lend one feature to the new 96 when it arrives. The Hunter caseback of the 5227 is so well integrated that its hinged assembly isn't obvious to the eye. When you hold it with the lid closed, it actually seems like a solid caseback watch. It is so slim and well integrated that you could mistake it for a solid caseback watch. So you can maintain that traditional look on the, let's say, 6196 reference without losing the display case back. You can have both, and the 5227 shows how that would happen. It's easy to imagine a successor reference, 6196, that maintains the traditional solid case back look, albeit with the flexibility of the Hunter. Let's check out viewer wrist shots number 4 and answer a question or two. So Neil S. of Boca Raton frames the Boca Raton Club Tower with his Rolex GMT Master 2 Batgirl. We've got Mo K out on the road with his Volvo XC90 and his Gerard Perregaux Laureato. We've got Abdul R. of Germany with his Zinn 356 Flieger 2 on campus in Germany's Black Forest, looking good from one Zinn owner to another, well shot. We've got Kevin from Phoenix staging his rare Frédéric Constant High Life chronograph, a watch he searched for a long time to obtain, well worth the wait. And Newton V closes our book with a dive shot of his Ulysse Nardin marine diver in the Maldives, and he gives a shout out to his friends at Watchbox, which we dearly appreciate. We got Amit K asking, Tim, what do you think is the best color variant for the Patek Antarctique? I really liked the Viridian Green option that they offered. What else is going on right here? We have a question, Christopher H. Does Marco Long's new watch do justice to the Long name as well? The Zweigesekt, I don't think it's beautifully named, but I do think it is a beautiful watch. I think there are some gimmicks there, like the shock measurement device. Trust me, you'll know if your watch is broken. You don't need a shock gauge. That said, it is kind of cool that it's reversible and the lugs flip, though I do wonder if the lug flipping mechanism, which requires set screws and screwdrivers, might be a little bit too fiddly for a retail customer. What else is going on here in the box? Abdul from Germany saying Aquanaut has to come with a set, maybe a couple of runners or at least an integrated strap system. Justin D. complimenting my jacket. Let's see what else is going on right here. We got Benjamin saying UN is underrated, and I got to agree. One of the most influential watch brands of the 2000s and 2010s without ever being a sales success. They were hugely influential in their mechanisms, use of advanced materials, and often their willingness to push a little too far with style, which a lot of others would follow up with a slightly less ambitious emulation that wound up being more commercially viable than whatever UN was doing. But I got to give UN a lot of credit. What else is going right here? Lord Hellespont saying, the Zweigesekt means two-face. Great name for a watch, even though I'm not a fan. Yes, I'm aware of that, but I also realize it's going to be almost impossible to remember or pronounce for a lot of English speakers, and they are a big part of the market. Abdullah asking, Tim, do you think Patek will introduce a new model line? I'd be very surprised if they do that. They have enough model lines already, and they need to strengthen the Aquanaut, strengthen the Calatrava, and strengthen the nearly dead Golden Ellipse collection. Also, it'd be nice to see a Gondolo come back because they're completely absent. Philip Lynn, Patek 5235 or Breguet 7097 retrograde seconds. Guys, this is not even a fight. I'm going with the 5235 regulator. Make mine in the discontinued white gold. What else is going on in the box? Guys, I'm tuckered out. Remember, Watch Fam for Ukraine Solidarity Auction starting on the 25th, continuing through the 28th. You can win a lot of cool watches, including my Zinn EZM 1.1. This could be yours, along with all of its boxes, papers, accessories, and a handwritten note of thanks and authentication from yours truly. Time out, Tim out, Sean out, and thanks for logging on.